The golden glow of the late afternoon sun streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm light over the cluttered countertop. As I stirred a pot of simmering marinara sauce, the familiar scent of garlic and herbs enveloped me, grounding me in the moment. I had always found solace in cooking, but that tranquility shattered the day I stumbled upon Emily's secret. It was a Saturday afternoon when I decided to clean out the junk drawer in our kitchen. Amidst old batteries and takeout menus, I discovered a series of messages on Emily's phone that left my heart racing and my stomach churning. They were explicit and intimate, clearly from another man. My entire world crumbled in an instant, and the realization hit me like a tidal wave. The woman I had loved for over a decade had betrayed me. The following weeks were a blur of confusion and hurt. I confronted her, of course, and while she pleaded for forgiveness, claiming it was a moment of weakness, I felt the weight of her betrayal suffocating me. I was lost in a haze of anger, disappointment, and grief. Each morning I forced myself to go through the motions, but the love I once felt for her was tainted by the bitter taste of deceit. One evening, as I sat on the couch, staring at the television but absorbing nothing, an idea began to take shape. What if I turned this pain into something transformative? I had watched too many romantic comedies and dramas where the characters found redemption and love through grand gestures. Perhaps I could create my own narrative. I decided to suggest renewing our wedding vows. The idea of a vow renewal ceremony seemed perfect. It would allow me to stage a series of surprise events that would gently or not so gently force Emily to confront her lies in front of our family and friends. I could transform this painful experience into a dramatic reveal at the altar, where the truth would come crashing down. As I shared my plan with her, Emily's eyes lit up with excitement. She thought I was trying to rekindle our love, unaware of my true intentions. "Oh, Michael, that sounds wonderful, just like the first time. We can plan a beautiful ceremony." She gushed, her enthusiasm masking the tension that simmered beneath the surface. We began preparing for the event, and I meticulously crafted a series of surprises for her, each designed to unravel the facade she had built around our marriage. I enlisted the help of our closest friends and family, explaining my plan in hushed tones. They were hesitant at first, but I assured them this was necessary for closure and truth. As the weeks passed, I carefully orchestrated each surprise. The first was a trip down memory lane. I took Emily to the venue where we had first exchanged vows, a quaint little chapel surrounded by blooming cherry blossoms. I remembered how she had looked that day, radiant and full of hope. Now I watched her grin as we walked hand in hand, completely oblivious to my hidden agenda. "Remember how nervous you were?" I asked, feigning nostalgia. "Of course. I thought I was going to pass out," she laughed, leaning in closer. I smiled, but inside, I felt a storm brewing. This was just the beginning. Next, I planned a dinner party with our closest friends. I set the table with care, using the same china from our wedding. As we dined, I brought up the topic of love and fidelity. I asked everyone to share their thoughts on marriage and what it meant to them. Emily chimed in passionately, her voice animated as she spoke about commitment and loyalty. I glanced around the table, catching the wary looks from our friends who were in on my plan, silently urging me to proceed. "Do you think it's possible to truly forgive someone who has betrayed you?" I asked, watching her closely. She hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. "I think it depends on the circumstances. Everyone makes mistakes, right?" I nodded, letting her words hang in the air like a challenge. The tension in the room grew palpable, but she remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath her seemingly calm exterior. As the vow renewal date approached, I decided to add one last surprise. I contacted a private investigator to gather evidence of Emily's affair, compiling a dossier of messages and photos that would lay bare the truth. I wasn't proud of this decision, but I felt it was necessary. It would serve as the final piece of the puzzle, the undeniable truth that could not be ignored. On the day of the ceremony, I stood at the altar, my heart pounding. I wore a tailored suit, looking polished and composed. Our friends and family filled the pews, their faces expectant. Emily looked stunning in her white dress, her hair cascading in loose waves around her shoulders. She radiated happiness, completely unaware of the chaos that awaited her. As the ceremony began, I felt a mixture of dread and anticipation. I recited my vows, speaking of love and commitment, while internally I wrestled with the pain that had fueled my deception. When it was Emily's turn to speak, she waxed poetic about our journey together, promising to love me faithfully and cherish our bond. The moment felt surreal, and I could almost believe that we were the same couple who had exchanged vows all those years ago. But I had one last surprise to unveil. Just as the officiant invited us to exchange rings, I held up a folder filled with the evidence I had gathered. "Wait, before we exchange rings, I have something to share," I said, my voice steady. Gasps echoed through the chapel as I opened the folder, the contents laid bare for all to see. "Emily, you said everyone makes mistakes," I began, my heart racing. "But some mistakes go deeper than others." I began to read the messages and describe the photos, watching her face drain of color with each word. Her eyes widened in horror as the reality of her actions unfolded before our family and friends. The air grew thick with tension, and I could feel the weight of their gazes on us, witnessing this very public confrontation. "Michael, please," Emily pleaded, her voice trembling as tears streamed down her cheeks. "This isn't fair. You can't do this here." I continued, my voice unwavering. "You made a choice, Emily. You chose to betray me, to destroy the life we built together, and now, on what was supposed to be a day of renewal, I need you to face the truth." Our guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some with expressions of shock, others with pity. I felt a mix of vindication and sorrow as the truth settled into the room, a heavy weight that none could escape. As I finished reading the last message, silence enveloped us. I looked into Emily's eyes, searching for the woman I once knew, but all I saw was guilt and shame. The tears continued to flow, and she shook her head in disbelief. "I never wanted this," she cried, her voice breaking. "I thought we could move past it. I didn't think it would come to this." "You thought wrong," I replied, my voice calm but filled with pain. "You had every opportunity to come clean, to be honest with me, but instead you chose deceit." The officiant stood awkwardly by, unsure of how to proceed. Our friends glanced around, some exchanging shocked whispers. I could feel the weight of their judgment, but at that moment, I didn't care. I had finally taken a stand for myself. As I turned to face the guests, I could see the mixed reactions. Some looked on with sympathy, others with disbelief, but one thing was clear: my truth was now out in the open. Today was meant to be a celebration of our love, but instead, it's become a reckoning. Emily, I hope this serves as a wake-up call for you, and for anyone who thinks betrayal can go unpunished. Emily fell to her knees, the reality of her choices crashing down on her like a tidal wave. Her sobs echoed through the chapel, a stark contrast to the joy that had filled the air just moments before. I felt a mixture of sadness and anger as I watched her grapple with the consequences of her actions. In that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. I had turned the pain of betrayal into a powerful declaration of my truth. As I stood there, surrounded by family and friends, I realized that I was no longer a victim. I was reclaiming my narrative. The officiant finally cleared his throat, attempting to restore order. "Perhaps we should take a moment to gather our thoughts," he suggested gently. As the guests shifted in their seats, I stepped outside, seeking fresh air and a moment of clarity. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the landscape. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world lift slightly off my shoulders. I had faced my demons, and although the road ahead was uncertain, I felt a sense of liberation. I was no longer defined by Emily's betrayal. I was choosing to write my own story from here on out. In the weeks that followed, the fallout from the ceremony was intense. Friends and family reached out, some offering support while others questioned my choices. Emily struggled to cope with the aftermath, grappling with the loss of our relationship and the embarrassment of the public confrontation. I had given her every chance to come clean, and now she was left to deal with the consequences of her actions. As for me, I took time to reflect and heal. I poured my energy into new projects, focusing on my career and rediscovering my passions. I surrounded myself with supportive friends and sought therapy to navigate the emotional turmoil. Ultimately, I learned that love could be complicated and painful, but it also had the power to heal. I embraced the lessons I had learned and vowed to never again allow someone else's choices to dictate my happiness. I emerged stronger and more resilient, ready to embrace whatever the future held. In the end, the vow renewal ceremony became a turning point in my life, a moment of clarity and self-empowerment. I had faced my truth and emerged victorious, ready to write the next chapter of my life on my terms.